From the Diary of Bill Lowie, Wednesday, 25 November. This has been a pretty uneventful week in our core area. There has been very little Viet Cong activity. However, we have heard through intelligence reports that 2 new VC battalions have moved into our area. Saigon has been having trouble with civil riots. Tonight, a new curfew law was issued in the Saigon area. All Americans must be off the street between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. I don't expect the present civil government to last out the year. Yesterday, my mission was to take the advisors for the Chau Doc area, an area right on the Cambodian border, on a recon of that area. They had a woman with them who claimed to have lived in a Viet Cong camp in that area. She had agreed to show the government troops where the area was for a price. She is a known VC agent, and the advisors were sure that when she was released, she would return to the camp and sell information to the VC for a price. This diary entry offers a snapshot of the complex and multifaceted challenges in South Vietnam during late 1964, a time when both the civil and military situations were increasingly fraught. South Vietnam in 1964 was plagued by political instability, with the government struggling to maintain control amidst internal discord and public dissatisfaction. By late November, General Nguyen Con's government was facing growing opposition, both from political factions and the general populace. Riots in Saigon, like the ones mentioned in the diary, were not uncommon and reflected frustration with corruption, inefficiency, and the perceived ineffectiveness of the regime. The imposition of curfews, like the one noted in the Saigon Cholon area, was a regular response to civil unrest, but often further strained relations between the government and its citizens. Bill's skepticism about the civil government's longevity was well-founded. South Vietnam would see another coup before the end of the next year, underscoring the instability that hampered the war effort. The Chau Doc area, mentioned in the diary, lies along the Cambodian border in the Mekong Delta. This region was a key infiltration route for the Viet Cong, who used the porous border to smuggle supplies and personnel into South Vietnam. The area was notoriously difficult to secure due to its dense terrain and the proximity to neutral Cambodia, which often served as a safe haven for VC forces. Intelligence reports about the arrival of the 2 new VC battalions reflect the growing threat in the area, as the VC sought to strengthen their foothold. Recon missions, like the one Bill describes, were critical for identifying enemy positions, but were fraught with risks, as the guerrilla tactics employed by the VC often made such operations hazardous and uncertain. The woman accompanying the advisors on this mission is an example of the moral and strategic ambiguities of the war. Informants played a crucial role in counterinsurgency efforts, but their motivations were often suspect. The belief that she might return to the VC after completing her task underscores the lack of trust and the fluid allegiances in the region. For U.S. and ARVN forces, this dynamic complicated efforts to gain reliable intelligence, forcing them to navigate a landscape where allies and enemies could shift unpredictably. She also proves that in a time of war, such as this, there were opportunities for the local men and women. Simply by selling information, whether it be true or not, she was not only protected from the violence, but also compensated for what she knew. This entry also reflects the broader tension between the military's immediate tactical concerns and the civil government's struggle for legitimacy. While U.S. forces and advisors focused on counterinsurgency efforts, the South Vietnamese government was losing the battle for hearts and minds, a critical aspect of any counterinsurgency campaign. The instability in Saigon and the distrust even among supposed allies, like the woman informant, mirrored the larger issues of the war effort, a fractured society and a difficult-to-pin-down enemy. And there it is. This is the final entry in Bill's diary. As I've mentioned before, he stopped keeping it for a reason, one we may or may not find out later. Though I've read through these contents many times before, I've never had the opportunity, until now, to read them with such clarity or comprehension. In only a span of 51 days, he wrote over 20 entries and discussed PSYOPs missions, spying, troop lifts, medevac, and much more. Had that period been all he experienced, it probably would have been enough to change anyone's life, but there's much more to come. It's been my pleasure to read these entries to you and comment on them. I hope you have enjoyed. I'm excited for what's next, the letters. Our following episode will be the first letter. We will read the first message beginning with the eponymist, Dearest Suzie. Things change now. Remember, he's writing to his wife. He is concealing some things. She is one of his few lifelines to the world back home. She is with their 3 children in Florida, living near his parents. If he tells her things, they are going to be softened so she can stomach them. Knowing this makes what is to come all the more painful. The photo I chose for today depicts a woman on what seems to be a motorized bicycle. Her pure white dress captivates me. Acting as a sign of purity or innocence in an otherwise stained and burdened time and place. Could she be one of those people who are informants for the highest bidders? Is she outside of the airfield? Why take this photo? Once again, we see a person who seemingly belongs to the landscape. It would likely be difficult for Poppy to communicate with her. She could be hiding things. This blends her in with the background. She becomes a part of the setting and not a character in this story. What an interesting consideration. I'm Alex Lowie, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie, and receiving messages from the past that my Poppy wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.